record. So this one will be in the archive. So excited to have Coach Soehren on tonight. Coach has done a great job over across Streakin Mountain at Oxford Hills, putting together his youth program and middle school program. And, it's certainly starting to show now at the high school. He's done a nice job turning that program around and really, has built it from the ground up, done it the right way. Certainly, a lot of respect on our end. We played a lot of youth and, well, not youth, but a lot of middle school games over the course of the past 2 years. They've been some good battles, and, his kids and our kids have played a lot against each other. So a lot of respect, Coach. Love the way you're doing it, and excited to hear you talk tonight about youth football. So it's all yours, man.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here. I know this has been great. I know everyone says that as well. It's great. I know that I've loved them all. The presenters have been great. Have been really good. So good to hear. So yeah, mine's on youth. I guess it's mostly directed right at youth coaches. It's on practice organization, and I guess what I thought of in this one is that it'd be just talk about our youth program a little bit, middle school program a little bit, and then give some context about the stuff that that we're doing. So, if anyone has anything, there's 2 emails. I've got my school email and then my Gmail account. Of course, there's my cell phone, and of course, I've been on Twitter lately a lot. It's been great and great resources, and see Coach Hathaway on there a lot as well. So our program, Ted Moshe, who's our principal now, he's the one who really started this a long time ago, and he made it in-house. And it's had all sorts of different incarnations, moving on up, so much so that even that our middle school was in-house for a while. It kind of ended after he got done, and then when Nate Danforth took over the program, he started it back up again into what it is now, for the most part. And so we have our boosters program in Oxford Hills runs youth programs. So it's not really, we can ask them for money, but really most of the schools, the high schools teams do their own fundraising. So the booster program also fundraises, and they get all of our concessions. So they get that for the football games throughout the year, plus they do other fundraising things. And they run the booster program. So I have a football director. They've had some really good ones. Dan Millett's doing it now. It's been apparent, and though I might be in charge of it, the director runs it, certainly consults me on some things, but makes a lot of decisions on their own. So the K-1-2, so each class has about 25 to 35 kids. So we have some pretty good numbers. So K-1-2, we started kindergarten while I've been head coach, and it's flag football stuff. And all of it is really, for the most part, is skills. They just go around, run around a lot, try to take each other's flags off. They have drills. Towards the second half of the season, they'll have a few games. But for the most part, it's just skills and drills. Grades 3 and 4 is 9-man. We played on a quarter of the field, so you cut the field in half and then cut that in half. Put cones out. We don't have score. We have a running clock up there. We have 4 teams, so the 2 games played at the same time. A lot of times we get 5 teams in that younger group. So we might play 2 at a time, and then have one game that's sort of, you could call a game of the week, against one of the other teams that already played. It used to be 8-man. Then the coaches kind of wanted to make it a 9-man, a little bit easier for them to use some of the offensive stuff that we've been giving them, excuse me, and set up a defense. No score. We have, first downs, there's the field's cut in half, so 25 yards. They start, and you get 4 downs to get to half the field, and if you get another 4, you get another 4, and you have to throw at least in one of them. And the coaches are on the fields. We ask them not to make up plays and draw them in the dirt, but to practice them, have a huddle. We don't have delay game or anything, but there's the coaches are supposed to sort of hurry up so kids can get reps. Grades 5, 6, full field tackle. Really regular game. We had a few years ago. Actually, one of my kids who's at Husson this year, he knocked himself out in a kickoff, and so it was parked with a friend, and so there was kind of reaction to that. And so we went away to no kickoffs. And if they want to do onside, we put like a 1st and 15, and if you get it, you get the ball back. If not, it goes back to the other team. So we have them punt. They're not rushes. And then we ask them to kick extra points where, again, excuse me, no one's rushing, but you have to catch the snap, and you got to put it on the tee for it to give it a shot. And I'll be honest with you, my freshman son this year, he loved it. He loved kicking, and I would not have said he's a kicker. He just loved trying it. And he actually became our kicker this year and was 30 for 33 on an extra point. So, and that was after many years that I had kickers that struggled. When we scored a touchdown, we'd go for 1, and then after that, it was going for 2. So it's kind of a nice way to help develop some of the kicking game. We start in late August. We don't have double sessions. During the season, 3 practices a week for 5 and 6, 2 for the kindergarten to 4. They practice at the high school. We do a skills night, do 2 different skills nights. We get all the coaches are there, and they got a name of the kids, and then they go and draft. And we don't draft necessarily first round. We'll draft, okay, put the quarterbacks on the teams, and you identify running backs and so forth, so that we've done it the other way in the past, and you end up having teams without a quarterback, or it just ends up being a little lopsided. And we want it as even as we can, because we're playing each other. We just don't want these blowouts to happen. We give a clinic for the coaches. It's not mandatory or anything, but my DC does his stuff, and I do the stuff for the offense. We encourage them to run our offense, and most do. Some of them don't. It's a little frustrating when they don't, and not because I just think I'm the greatest coach and the greatest offensive mind in the world, but, and you'll see as we get into this, it just makes it a lot easier when they get up in the middle school and into high school. And at the end of the year, we do play. We put a 6th grade team together with some 5th graders, and we try to play different teams. So we go out. Bonnie Eagle has an in-house one, so they put a team together. We play them. At the end of the season, we've played Freeport in the past. We played sort of an all-star team from one of the leagues, and it's been a kind of a nice way to end the year. We've got playoffs. They play each team twice, so you get a 6-game regular season, 2-game playoff, and it's fun. You got 2 weekends. We do some night games during the week under the lights they play in our varsity field, and parents and the kids love it. A little bit shortened games, 20-minute halves for 3, 4, 8-minute quarters for 5 and 6. We end up with 2 to 4 coaches per team. The boosters program gives them, for equipment, gives them a stand-up bag and a hand shield. So they practice usually at our middle school or high school, and we have a storage out there that they can get into if they want. So if you're a youth coach and you're learning what equipment, I guess I would say you definitely have cones. As far as your stand-up bags, I like the half rounds because you can put them on the ground and you can stand them up and kids can hit them. A hand shield's handy, 12-inch boards. And then, I guess I would get something that you can identify the scout team with, whether it's the hats that go on the helmets, or I just buy, you'll see them in a little video I have, but the bright yellow, orange, or I guess yellow work, what do you call them, vests, and they're cheap. They rip easy, but they're cheap. So I think, in organizing your practices, you have to prioritize, what it is you're doing. And I think this has to be something done consciously, because otherwise you end up just wanting to win. And there's, in youth, it's just so much different winning than even in high school. Middle school and youth are very similar. I should say our middle school program is we have a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team. We don't mix them. It is a middle school team. It's not a rec team. So we hire the coaches the athletic director does, and I'm part of that. And so we have a lot of control over that. That works out pretty well. Mike knows our league is kind of disbanded in the past few years, and I think we're trying to get into a new middle school league this year. So we'll see how that goes. But as coaches, you got to decide what is it that you really want to do. And, we do have a championship in ours, and it's fun. And I've watched my own boys come up through that program.
And it was fun to play. I had one win it one year, another one, I think he was in the championship, but never won it. And he's turned out okay. You know, he didn't need to win it to be a good player. But I think you decide, like, what is the purpose of this youth program? I mean, you want to do varsity schemes, fundamentals. You know, for me, I want them to love the game. If they don't love the game, they're not going to stick with it. You know, are you addressing all the athletes on the team? You know, are you coaching them all? You've got late bloomers, you got early bloomers. You know, you've got these different kids. It's easy to teach to those good kids, and those priorities determine how you practice and how you play. So, you know, it's been sort of a long haul for me. I know when I was on New York State coaching, I was just a young coach and in a pretty good program. I was just an assistant, and I remember thinking I wanted to really get in somewhere that was kind of struggling and see if I could really, you know, turn around, if I really was that kind of coach that could do that. And sometimes, like be careful what you wish for. You know, it's been a bit of a long haul, and I love it. I mean, I love it at Oxford Hills, and the staff that's been with me, you know, they were part of it when Oxford Hills was struggling even before I got here. And it just, in the observations I've seen, like the biggest one is, do you have a bunch of studs? And it goes the same for the youth. You know, do you have quality athletes? And the next one then, and this is what I really learned, and I think I learned this more in the past 2 years than anything else, is that quality of instruction. It's not really a scheme. It's not how much money you have. It's not the facilities. You know, administration and parents are all factors. But can you teach those techniques? You know, I can tell you that, and it's not the only game, but, you know, when we played Scarborough and TA in Bonnie Eagle, especially that TA playoff game, it was really clear that fundamentally that they just did a better job coaching. And so, you know, that next day got together with my DC and we're like, we need to make sure we're doing a better job of teaching those skills and techniques. You know, it's not I need a better play. I need to be a better coach. So I think that in the progression of the program that I've seen, and this relates to the youth programs because this is where youth programs can really help out, is when I first got to Oxford Hills, we did a bunch of different things that we put into it, you know, and it wasn't just me, it was the staff. And I think, you know, what's kind of come to me is like, okay, what's the first thing we did? Well, identified who's that physical ability, who has the mental capacity, can you coach them? Can they respond to failure? Can they respond to being, you know, and sometimes criticized? Can they respond, you know, to you know, being physically exhausted and still play at a high level? You know, and can we develop them? You know, I think that one of the things that I've learned is that selfish play and selfish behaviors just have been, you know, just huge in tearing down a program and tearing down a team. And so I've kind of, you know, been at a point that I'm just not going to tolerate anymore. And, you know, I think that's something that the youth level, I would like them to sort of communicate with parents and athletes about, whereas I tend to just sort of give them an ultimatum. But it's like, how can you develop them? Then the what parts, you know, what schemes, what plays are you going to run? What offense are you going to run? And it's also teaching what the kids should do. And I can tell you that we got stuck a lot of years just teaching them, you know, who to block. Like, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to block this one? You know, making my practices more efficient. You know, when I was messing around with different schemes, you know, I was like, what drills do I have to run? What are the answers that I have? You know, and then we finally got into the set summer schedule. But the youth program, I think, is more of the who part of things. You know, identifying those kids and also seeing about those kids who are those late bloomers. I know that all of us like to think that we were super tough when we were youth football players. I know I started youth football in 4th grade. I was not tough. I was not a tough kid. My dad coached. He sort of got suckered into it. He wasn't really a coach. And I'm sure I can only imagine how frustrated he was. But you know what? I grew and ended up having a decent football career and be able to play in college. You know, but if you're looking for the toughest kids in 4th grade, you're probably not going to find them. The other thing I would say is don't underestimate the lack of their football knowledge. I know when I first started at Poland, I was the assistant there. Rick Kramer was starting it up, and we set up a simple Oklahoma drill. And we had an offensive lineman down, and he went and he blocked the kid in front of him, and then turned around and tackled his own running back. And I thought, yeah, he hasn't played much football. You know, he hasn't watched much football. I asked the kids if they watch much football, and the truth is they watch the Patriots. That's about it. They don't really watch college, and they don't, you know, which I think, college game is where I learned a lot of the stuff, but they, be sure to really express to them the rules of the game and what they're supposed to be doing. The next two parts, and this should be 3 and 4.
Coach Soehren,
Yeah.
Your camera is turned off. If you want to turn that back on.
Oh, it's off?
See, I might be able to prompt you to do it too. Hold on. I can ask you to start it.
Let's see here.
You have something in like the bottom left corner that says start video.
Well, let me see here. It's disappeared. So if I do this, am I on now?
Yeah, now we got you back. Now I think if you just share your screen again, you'll be good.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Did I do that wrong? I went down to the share button.
Yeah, I know it happened like midstream. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if when you change slides, if it just did it or what.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't had him the whole time.
Whole time.
But you're on now. If you click your share screen button and get your PowerPoint back up, you should be good.
All right, so I'm on now. The share button. Am I on?
Yeah, it's weird. When you share your screen, it takes you off.
I don't know what's going on. I just hit the share button down at the bottom. What do I do here? Am I doing this wrong?
The green share screen button, you should be able to click on that. And I don't know why you disappear when you go off, but if you do, you do. It's not a huge deal. So go ahead and try to share the PowerPoint again. Oh, there we go. We got you now. Perfect.
All right. How about now?
As soon as you did that, it takes your picture off.
So it goes. This is the only way it's presenting. I'm not sure.
Just go with the presentation, man, and we can listen. It's not a huge deal.
All right. Do that. So say the progression of the program. So the first two was who and what, and then I said now we're at. We're with how well. And the reason that I bring this up is because if you're teaching in the youth program the whats and you're identifying the who's, then the varsity program start to do the how wells. Like how well do I, instead of teaching them the terminology or the drills even, we can make them better blockers and tacklers. What I also learned about losing for so long, when you don't for teams, small things don't really matter. It didn't matter, when I was at Poland and we were playing Wells, it didn't matter how if we did the small thing, we just weren't as good, or Mountain Valley. And when you start to get better, those small things become hugely important. And this is where, rather than teaching them the whats and the terminology, it makes it easier in practicing the small things. And and the things that I noticed in the past couple of years, finals and lost is, and the truth is, really situationally, we've not been able to get to those pieces because we're doing some other things in practice. And I realized I have to be able to get situational football. I have to teach them, like when we lost in overtime, it would have been nice to have run some simulations of overtime so those kids knew it was happening. But in truth, those priorities weren't there because we weren't good enough to really get in overtime where it mattered. And so, if the youth programs identify those who's and the whats, and then the varsity can do the hows and the whens. The other road where I think that a lot of these guys get, the youth programs lose it, is confusing ability with skill. And I say, that ability is some kids fast or some kids big. Like it doesn't matter what you teach for the most part. And they're so, I know my oldest was
incredibly fast as a youth player. I don't know why, but he just was. And you can hand him the ball, and he could just run, and no one could really catch him. And that's not the case now, And if you're not looking at the skills in there, and you're not developing skills, you're just relying on ability. You're just not going to have the players you want. And it's magnified in middle school and youth. So that's why they have the rules. I think in our league it's 135 pounds to carry the ball. You can't, and the coaches don't like it. They want their kids to carry the ball, and I understand that. But it ends up just having to the biggest kid and having to run the ball, and that's just not making a better football player. And I can tell you, the kids that I have that do run the ball, that were linemen, they're not behind anyone because they weren't running the ball when they were younger. I've got a freshman running back this year who is always a lineman coming up, and he's a stud, and he'll run the ball for us next year. And he was a lineman in youth. That ability makes teaching skills easy to ignore. You just hand the ball off. So identify those who have ability and those who and you're developing skill, because they're going to close. As you get to high school, they'll close. They get closer. You certainly get differences, but nothing as dramatic as middle school. And I think this is an example. You've got this kid. I don't know. It says out of Louisville, but a 300-pound eighth grader. And the kid, look at his number. His number is 81. He just, he doesn't look like a wide receiver, tight end type when he gets to high school, but I'm sure he's pretty effective in eighth grade at 300 pounds. And he probably that size will be fine for him as a high schooler. But I just think these are the things we identify. Like, where is he really going to play as he gets older? So the other thing I say, and what I see a lot is have a written practice plan. Have a written plan. Write it down. I don't know if I've ever really seen a coach, some really experienced coaches, come out without a plan. And I think that if you want to see some, I'll put one up, but if you want to see some plans, it's easier just to Google that practice plan sort of thing. I mean, I've had many different kinds. We've kind of settled on this one that works for us. And I divided that up into 5-minute periods. That's what we did in college, and it worked well. And so we just I just divide the whole thing up, and we're looking at usually 10 to 15-minute blocks. We'll sometimes do 5, but that's not very realistic. We usually run over anyways. So if you look on here, you got warm up, and you've got your indie groups, your indie, and then your group. We spend a lot of time in group. We do an inside run period, an outside run period. We'll run Skelly. A lot of the offensive line, they get a lot of indie time while we're running some of the group stuff as well. And then we get into team. I probably spend more time in team than we should, because I'm always trying to get a look at what we're doing. I think as we get better, and as the kids understand more, understand the system more, we'll spend less time in team. Most days we spend at least 20 minutes on specials. I'd like to spend more, to tell you the truth. And again, I think as we get better, that'll be something we can do. We intersperse our conditioning in the practices, and I suggest that. I don't know. I think conditioning seems, for me, is a little bit overrated. Our drills do a lot of that in the beginning. We do some agility drills. We call it county fair and double sessions. That's a tough conditioning one. And once we get into the year, we don't do a ton of competition. We spend a little more time on practice and offense and defense. My DC doesn't like that, but we're just better on defense than we are on offense, so it takes a little more time. I know that I would say in the youth level, please try and make things fun. Use some competitions, do some fun games. I've got some examples here when we get into this a little bit. When I first got over to Oxford Hills too, I just told them, stop running laps. Those big guys hate running laps. I always think that's sort of like when I'm in basketball practice, coaching basketball, and I don't know what to do, I just have them shoot free throws, and then I regather and we get on and move on to something else. But this is the way running laps feels like for me. Just do something else rather than run. Those big guys hate it. We set areas on the field, the same areas on the field every day, so that everyone knows where they're going to start the day. We have offensive days and defensive days. We always have both, but one's more emphasized than the other. Kids know where to go. And then when having a written plan helps you transition well.
transition from group to team, and the kids are mingling around. That's where huge time waster. And we try to minimize that and getting water and such. Here's an example of our practice schedule. You can see it's pretty simple. In the left-hand column, we marked down what we're doing. I didn't put, I think we took this from the Eagle week, and 4-run stretch. We have 5 minutes of some stuff here, and this is names of our plays, but we went into, these are RPOs, and we went and did some stuff. So the quarterback's reading RPOs and stuff. You basically got Indy over here with the linemen, and they continued they did inside run. Well, we went to 7-on-7. We have a screen period, and then we do team run. Special says 5 minutes. We probably didn't do any of it that day, but usually we do some of it. Here's the bottom half of that. And you can see this part's the bottom. Here's the defensive part. Coach Danforth, DC, he writes up his own. So when I print this out, I just don't put his stuff on here. This stuff down here is my script. I always script everything that we're doing. So when we're doing 7-on-7, we run through this list. And so I can yell at the coaches, and I can say, hey, we're on number 2, we're running blue, so the coaches know what we're running. They can look for something ahead of time, and then they can address it when they don't have to guess what the play is. This is the inside run period. So if I'm with the 7-on-7, then I give this to my O-line, and my running backs coach is over there, and they'll go through this list of plays. And so this would be the plays that we're running for that day. And then we go into teams. So against that week, we looked at a 52 and a 4-2-5. And these are the lists, we went through. This is some of the stuff that I have on the side the focus for the week or the days or whatever. The one thing I want to share that we do, that I think I got this from Rick Kramer, who's the OC at Bridgeton Academy now. He was a Poland coach when I was there. This is conditioning one. I really like it. It's 10 seconds of sprinting and 20 seconds of rest. We kind of simulate the game. We tell kids 7 seconds of effort. I don't know where I read somewhere, 7 seconds, the average time a play takes. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds good. And, they get a long rest. So when we do conditioning, we try to simulate that. And then, I hated conditioning when I was younger, and I was just trying to get through it. And so when I heard about this, and I modified it a little bit, but we just do 10 different sessions of this. So it takes literally just 5 minutes. And what they do is I spread them out. We have the big guys in one group spread across the field, and then the skilled guys spread across the field. And this first one, the skilled guys got to run 15 yards and back, and they got to do it in 10 seconds. And the bigs go 10 yards and back. And if they don't make it, the coaches will call that kid out, and he has to go to the sideline, and he's got to do up downs for which generally takes longer than 10 seconds. So there's a motivation to make it. So they have to sprint and have a full effort. And as we go. So on this one, we do 3 up down and then run 15 yards and just stay on that side. And then we repeat it and run back. Then they have to do 5 push-ups and then run 15 yards. And if they don't make it, again, they get pulled off to the side. 5 squat jumps. This is bear crawl. So as we get towards the end, they've got a bear crawl, 15 yards and sprint back, which is actually pretty tough to do. So by the end, the goal is to have a few of them that, that are left, and some of them haven't made it. And then we repeat this. This is a different one, but we repeat them. So the kids can say, well, I got to number 5, last week, maybe I can get to number 7 this week. And so they can actually set some goals with it and know what they're doing. We'll do 2 or 3 of these interspersed throughout the whole practice. So we don't do it all at the end. We'll do a group, and then we'll go Viking Warrior conditioning. Kids know where to go. The tight ends and the fullbacks all want to go with the big groups. We usually make them go with the skilled guys. And it's worked out pretty well. And the kids, it's only 5 minutes. They know it's 5 minutes of effort. They can give that full sprint, and then they can rest. So it's sort of a mental thing as well. So your enemy's time, that's the thing about practices, especially with our league. You've got 3 practices a week, and if you're wasting time, you're wasting the reps. And one of the things I see happen a lot is you've got 1 line of receivers, 1 quarterback, 1 football, and you're standing around waiting to get reps. Or you've got
linemen that are doing some sort of blocking drill, and there's one line, the guy in front of them, and everyone's just standing there. So what I would say, especially during Indy, is get as many possible people getting reps as you can. And that takes some forethought. And I know when I have new coaches come in, that's one of the first things I talk to them about. Like when you're setting up a drill, set something up so they all get reps. Now, not all of them are going to get instruction and correction, but at least they're all getting reps. And the other thing is due to, because sometimes you get into coaching and all of a sudden you look at your drill and the kids are dead tired, which is okay. But if you're trying to teach a skill and you're making them dead tired, it just isn't going to, they're not going to get as much out of it as they can. So, I was telling, like, listen, this is a teaching drill. You're trying to just get a bunch of reps in. So if you want to teach it, slow it down and make sure they're rested so that they can be mentally wrapped. If you want to teach some of that, being mentally strong and learning how to do a skill, that's one thing. But, if you're trying to teach a new technique, just be aware of that. I know we always fail at getting kids reps when we're in team. It's just a bunch of standing around. I'm not sure what the answer is to that. I know some of the youth programs, like our youth programs, have 12 to 18 kids on a team, depending on the year. So they're not running 11 on 11. So they run half line. So they just split the kids in half, and they can run 5 on 5 or 6 on 6 for the most part. I'd say plan those transition water breaks and conditioning before. It wastes a lot of time. My suggestion would be to run your high school's offense, and I think all schemes work. You watch Rotzko and Roche at Wells and those guys in Marshwood, they run wing T. You look at TA, Bonnie Eagle, and Levitt run spread. Like, it all works. You just got to be able to teach it. And if you're a youth coach and you have some problems and you're running your high school's offense, then you can go to them and they'll have answers. They'll have drills and they'll have adjustments and they'll have teaching points that they've already been doing for years. It's also then a real system. You're not just running a bunch of random plays. And this is where it gets to the what part of the program building is kids learn the terminology. They learn drills. They learn their assignments. So when they come up to the middle school, they can learn a little bit more. And I know Mike does a great job with this at Levitt. I mean, those kids, like I said, we played middle school. Our sons are the same ages, and they, our older sons, and they play tons of games. And it's a Class C school and Class A school, and they beat us as many times as we've won. And quite often it's as much the coaching that's in place as anything. Those kids execute and they know what they're doing. And like I said, it helps those middle school and high school coaches. I would encourage you to limit the number of plays you use. If you're not going with your high school coach's lead, I went up and I gave a suggestion of what to use. Some of them did it, some of them didn't. Get an inside run, get an outside run. Have a counter, so it all looks the same. I like 2 play action passes. You get waggle, which is a classic. 2 short game passes, hitch and slant is the easiest. We run sort of air raid type offense, so I give them a couple other ones they can choose from. Verts is a great one. You can do some adjustments off it. Smash is a classic drop back one. It's fun to get a trick play in there. I mean, I don't tell them what trick play is. Come up with one. Those work really well in the school and youth program. But I've had coaches before running the double reverse before they've run the reverse off of the play that they run. So, double reverses don't work unless the reverse is working off of a play that works. So, just don't get caught up into halfback passes. Practice those plays, get good at them, throw in trick play towards the end of the year. These are everyday drills. I give that list to my middle school more than I do the youth programs, but these are drills that we just try to do. It's not every day. They certainly are done every week. We teach these early in the season. I try to repeat the drills that we've taught early because teaching new drills all the time just takes time away from getting reps. We run power, pin and pull, and counter tray a lot. So the offensive line plays that we run, The drills that we run are, basically we teach a pull to lead, we pull to kick, a down block, and a combo. And we usually will run, like if we're running, if we're teaching counter tray that week or that day, we're doing pull to lead and pull to kick. Those are the big ones. Not that you don't do the other ones, but those will be the, the drills for the day. And then we'll lead into the group where we're running inside run and then into team. I'm the DB coach, and I know, excuse me, every day we do the cone drill, which I got from one of my players who came back and said he's a DB at Plymouth State and came back and he showed it to us. That's an everyday drill. We do that every day. We do a mirror drill every day. We read keys as much as possible. We do those things. Same with the running back drill. So those things you can get from your coaches. You can do the same things. Kids get good at them. And it reinforces those fundamental skills. I think this is one of the underused ones. And even for me, I would say to the youth coaches, film at least parts of your practices. I just pull out my phone. I'll film the O-line. We're on huddle, so I'll just put it up immediately to huddle, and I'll go back and watch it, during the day. A lot of practice. People have said, like, don't correct during the team time. Just run it and go back and correct later. And you can do that if you film it. And it's really easy to do. I wouldn't film everything, film your O-line, film the kids that won't change. And I do this on occasion. And I also film games with my phone. And so what I figured out early, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but if you get a regular huddle account, you get 4 different accounts. And so you have to request them from huddle, but you can get them. One of the things we did was we're starting to, just for fundraising purposes, the booster program actually raises quite a bit of money. And so we give a 3rd and 4th grade account and a 5th and 6th grade account. And we're going to have them, pay us a couple $100 to help with that account. And it helps with the fundraising and paying for huddle. So you can have them, and then you can put it up there. You can give the kids them, their parents, they can watch them, whatever you want to do with them. But I wouldn't show them to the team. I wouldn't have varsity, and we do all the time. We show them film, but I don't think that's necessarily in youth. But, with that huddle, it's really easy. This is just an example of the film that, took the simple. This isn't the playoffs. It's a little slow, but this is the cone drill. I just filmed it with my phone, put it up there, and there it is. You can look, and as I look at this, here's my starting DBs. Here's one that played a fair amount for us. This is my injured quarterback who's actually getting out of the drill quicker than the other one. So I think, if I would have had him able to play, that would have been something I considered, which I hadn't really considered him for a DB position. But that film is invaluable. I should do more of this. I always think that we always run out of times, but when we get into playoffs and we shorten practices a little bit, and we don't have conditioning and that sort of thing, gives a little extra time, the kids love it. We just do a competition. Usually we'll do it. It depends. Sometimes middle practice, sometimes end. Sumo, we've just got a big ring that our line coach made. It's probably about 10 feet in diameter. We put 3 or 4 guys in there, break them up into teams, put, one with 3 or 4 guys in there, one from each team, and they have to push each other out of it. Kids love it. Board drills, that's an easy one. If you're a youth coach, if you got that agility bag, you just put it on the ground and have them push them off, each other off of it. We go like a tournament. We'll see who are the last 2 standing. Tag, we at the end of our Thursday practices, we were over at our varsity field under the lights, and remember when I first became the head coach here, the kid asked me if we could play kind of a likable knucklehead asked me if we could play tag. And I'm like, what are you, 7? And then the coach just kind of explained to me, like, no, it's a game we play at the end, and we just line kids up in the end zone. They run to the 50, and we say go, and then we call out a name, and that person's it. And the last person that is tagged is the loser, and he has to come out and do up downs in front of the group. And so we just do that we have a skill group and a big guy group, and it is really fun. It doesn't sound like it, but it's a fun one to end on. And
what always amazes me is that, the survival of the fittest, it does not matter who you call or where they're lined up. Typically, they find the slowest kids. I mean, you'd think it'd be random, but it's not. But it's a fun one. Dummy tackle drill is one that we've done. I have a diagram of it. That was fun. And then we did catch. So one day the kids, this is in playoffs again, they wanted to have a fun competition. I kind of made it up, and I had our punter go back, and I said, okay, only the linemen catch punts. And I split them up into 2 teams, and you had to pick a side, and then everyone had to catch, and you just got a point for every kid that caught a ball. And this was the last one to win. So, I mean, it was just it was a great way to end practice. We actually did, the losers had to do snow angels. It was just one of those things. The big guys got to catch football, and it was more fun watching them miss the football. This is the one with this. When I was at Poland, I was trying to get them a way to build some team and to build some enthusiasm and to learn how to complement each other. And so you can see, you've got usually have injured guys holding these 2 dummies, and they will walk back and forth here while I'm over here telling these guys who are facing me and they can't see the dummies, they're doing seat rolls and up downs and shuffling until I blow the whistle, and then they have to go tackle these 2 dummies. And so, of course, the winners are the ones who tackle it, but the rules are the entire team who's standing back over here, they have to race out to them. They have to celebrate. They have to jump up and down, and they have to compliment their players. And the team that loses, they go do the same thing. And they sort of be supportive, and then they have to do push-ups. And it was this contrived thing, and I was pretty skeptical of doing it. And it changed. It can, if you're having a bad practice and you want to change the tone of your practice, this is a great drill. They will all of a sudden come out, even if they're mad at you or whatever, they'll come out of it feeling great, and then you can move on to something else. So some of these fun competition ones. As far as organizing these things, this is sort of everyone's probably a little bit different, but what do you do with the coaches? If you only have 2 coaches, we break offense into O-line and skill players, and then you're just going to have to figure out a way to address all the needs for the skill players. A little easier with O-line. If you got 2 for defense, we break them up into DBs and D-line. Linebackers switch between the 2, depending on what you're trying to get done. 3 coaches makes it a little easier. We put running backs and quarterbacks together. We have wide receivers out there and O-line. Running backs can switch back and forth. Defense is easy. DBs, linebackers, and defensive line. 4 coaches. That's, you start looking at varsity stuff here. 4, we have 5 varsity guys plus 6 actually. But, how do you break them up? We break them up, running back, quarterback, we break up DNs. When you could do inside backers and outside backers. And I think if you have more than 4 at youth level, you're crazy. I don't know if you deal with that many kids. With the size of our teams, 3 is plenty. So this is, I started thinking when you come into your, have a season-long plan. What are you doing? Talk to the head coach. I always say, you guys come to our practices. Come and watch them. Come and ask questions. Come and take notes. If you want to sit down with us, we always go in the coach's office every day after practice. Come in and sit down with us and see what you're doing. Come to double sessions and see what we're installing and how we're installing it. Having installation plans. I'm trying to get my entire offense installed in 3 days and then repeat it, which I don't think is going to happen, but that's what I'd like to do. So when we go into double sessions, that we'll do. We'll have a camp in July. That's how we'll install. When you have your weekly plan, have a problem, have a plan to fix your problems. And this is where film is nice. I just can't imagine coaching a sport without film, even in basketball. I would film as much as I could. I wouldn't show it to kids, but I'd break it down, like even with middle school. Like, what are we doing wrong? Don't add new plays to fix problems. I mean, there's a time and a place to add some plays in, but, figure out a different way to block things. What drills? Figure out a better drill. I have coaches like, I don't know how these kids can't learn it. I know they can learn it because I had some varsity coaches go down into youth programs and teach it. And I've watched, Mike and his younger teams, they pull guards all the time, pull centers, if you can teach it, they can learn it. Your skill development, get a list of drills that you're ready for because your practice isn't going to go well. What do you have, that you can pull out and teach a certain skill. And I would say, Coach Tube is one that's, you got to pay for a lot in there, but it's a great resource. X&O Labs also is another great resource. Got to pay. YouTube, though, Facebook, Twitter, podcasts, tons of free stuff out there that you can get all kinds of drills and things to solve problems. And your best ones are probably, at your high school with your head coaches, and then go to clinics. I know I've offered with my youth coaches. They typically have not taken me up on it. But I'm ever hopeful that they would come and show up and be a part of it as much as anything. And that's about it. That's what I got.
That was awesome, Coach.
Thanks. Let me see if I can get this thing back up here. There we go. Share. All right.
There we go. Sounds like World
I wonder
War
what
III
that was.
upstairs in my house.
Thing not meeting or not working, not seeing the camera. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. You made a bunch of good points, man. I would say just as a head coach, the more that you can involve those youth guys and middle school guys with what you're doing, the better. And just that open door policy of, come to a practice. If you want to come to a film session where the coaches are breaking down film, come to that. When we do our youth program, our youth camp in the summer, we have those guys like shadow a position. So like if somebody's going to coach O-line, they follow our line coaches around for the day, and that's worked out pretty well. So I would encourage all the youth coaches to reach out to your high school coaches and ask for those things if they're not presenting them. And if I was a head coach, I would be presenting as many opportunities to those guys as you can. So I thought that was good. The filming piece too. I know, like in our high school practices, Coach Marston will, he'll bring his iPad right out to practice, and he'll be standing right behind the linebackers, filming what they're seeing, and just little things like that you can go back and pick up on. That to me makes a big difference. Also thought you made a good point on it really doesn't matter what position they play when they're younger. You certainly, we've never tried to get our bigger kids into the backfield. I try to tell coaches all the time not to do that. But this year, one of our tailbacks, Alan Peabody, he was our tailback and strong safety. He was a guard in youth football and middle school. I don't think he ever carried the ball until he got to high school, and he was pretty darn good. And Cam Jordan was Player of the Year this year, and he played left tackle right beside Al all during youth football, and he played in the slot for us this year. So, it really doesn't matter. Those kids who are really good athletes, sometimes just putting them in the line and teaching them to block and be physical, and also protecting the smaller kids on your team. Like, if I'm not very good up front and I'm giving some other guys the ball and they're getting whacked, I'm not sure that's helping either. So.
Yeah. Get a lot of kids.
That was a great point, and definitely I thought you started with it and you ended with it. Having fun is the most important thing. I don't care if it's youth, middle school, high school, whatever you're doing. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And, I've worked a lot of lobstables with Stacey Doucette over the years, and Stacey was awesome at just some of those team building things, and that two bag drill with 3 teams. He would do stuff like that all the time, and You know, I remember when we would go to lobster bowls, we would do them at the lobster bowl. I'd, you know, say to him, like, stay at the lobster bowl, man. Like, we've got 3 days to put in a whole offense. You know, I'm not sure we can take time to be doing this. He's like, you know, he was always like, no way, Alec, we got to do this, man. So, you know, always on that. Anything you can incorporate that's fun. We have, at the end of the year, we have when we have our banquet, I take all the kids to my classroom before the banquet, and each senior gets to address the team once before we go in for the banquet with the parents. So it's just the coaches and the players. And they have to, you know, they have to do thank yous. They have to lend a piece of advice, and then they have to say what's the thing they remember the most about the season, and then what they're going to miss the most when they leave. And this year, of our like 15 seniors, I think 10 of them said, hey, when Stoney caught that punt and we got out of conditioning on Friday in doubles, that was the best thing ever. You know? So Stoney's like this 290-pound DT for us, and we do it where we take two, you know, our 2 biggest linemen, we put them out there, and they got to, I punt 3 of them, and they got to catch 2. And if they do, it gets them out of conditioning. And Stoney caught the last one. We let him take his shoulder pads and helmets off. So he catches the last one, and they pig pile him. And when he comes out of the pig pile after about this 5-minute celebration, his shirt was ripped into like 30 pieces. So it was, you know, it was awesome. So you can't underestimate, you know, stuff like that for sure. But,
yeah, it is funny, those things that they remember. They remember the snow angels. You know, they stick with them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was awesome. You guys got any questions for Coach?
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, you know, down in Madomic, we're in the Eastern Maine Middle School Football League. But youth-wise, you know, we've had a coastal league with Belfast, ourselves, Oceanside, Lincoln County, which is basically Lincoln Academy, and then Camden and Boothbay. Camden and Boothbay obviously are both going to 8-man. Lincoln County has actually dissolved their entire program. The high school, for whatever reason, there was differences there. They had no interest in having you know, an MPA high school team. They had a club high school team for a while, but numbers declined. So I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, we're looking at going into this year with 3 11-man teams and 2 8-man teams, and trying to find a balance of you know, helping those guys out in the 8-man world, but also making sure that we're keeping enough kids participating in our end. And we've also in the past played against teams from China, Augusta, Brunswick, Waterville. You know, any guidance you guys have as far as scheduling and things like that, or if anything you've heard of in other places trying to get youth leagues together that are facing the same, you know, situation basically.
Yeah, I would say, you know, one thing I might try is when you play those, if you play those 8-man teams, try to make it a 3-way. If you have good numbers, you can divvy your team in half and play on each end of the field, and that way your kids aren't standing around. You know, and that's not just going to be a youth and middle school problem. That's going to be a high school problem, I think, because a lot of the teams in D North right now are looking at, you know, if we're going to play freshman football, or some of them, even if we're going to play JV football, we're going to have to play some 8-man games. So I think some coaches are going to have to dust off their 8-man skills for some of these sub-varsity games at some point. You know, I know Coach and I, you know, we were in a different league this year. We tried to play a few games on the side, and we kind of get stymied a couple ways. But, you know, certainly, you know, you can always reach out down this way, and if there's a weekend we can play or something, we can figure that out, or maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere in 3-way with another team and do something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I appreciate anything on your end, Mark, that you've seen or, you know, or have thought of in that as well.
Yeah, we sort of run into, I